I would say we've been very fortunate with this whole AI hype wave. We can now say Digits is AI native. Our models learn instantly from your changes or from your work. And so if you edit a transaction and confirm it, it'll immediately start mimicking you on the next similar transaction that comes in.
Welcome everyone to this episode of the Modern CPA Success Show. Like all times, we like talking about kind of where are things going and where are we today? And that's very much our topic today. Jeff Seibert is with us. He is the CEO and co-founder of Digits. Jeff, welcome.
Tom, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, and I'll go into your background in just a second. I forgot my co-host Adam Hale and I work together. I'm a VCFO within our Anders virtual CFO group. Adam runs that organization. Adam, welcome.
That's okay, Tom. You forget about me often. It's okay. I'm still here.
Yep. You'll get a couple free questions away from me. So Jeff, back to you. Would love to hear some of your background and kind of the story that got you to your current role, and then we can jump in and talk about Digits.
Yes. So I've basically been obsessed with software since I was little. I taught myself C when I was 12, absolutely fell in love with programming. And that's sort of been the rest of my life. So Digits is my third company. I came out to Silicon Valley for college and sort of never left. I started a document collaboration startup back in 2007-08. We got acquired by Box in 2009 and powered all document display on Box for the next 5 years with our tech. I then started a mobile analytics company called Crashlytics in 2011, basically helping app devs identify what line number of code they had to fix, like why their app was crashing. We got very lucky with market timing, scaled from 0 to 300 million devices in 12 months. Got acquired by Twitter. At Twitter, I was named head of product in 2015. And so ended up running all the core sort of product surface areas everyone is likely familiar with on the Twitter side. And then I left in 2017 to start Digits. And so our goal has been to basically reimagine accounting in an era of machine learning. That was one of my passions back in 2017, 2018. I would say we've been very fortunate with this whole AI hype wave. We can now say Digits is AI native. Originally, it was just ML native, but same difference. And so we're really excited what we can do to make small business finance far more automated, far more intuitive, far more visual for both business owners and accountants.
Interesting. If you don't mind me digging in on one piece of that. So why the focus on accounting and what was it? You could have gone to kind of any company. What was it that you said, I think accounting is a prime spot and maybe a few other things?
Yes. So this came out of my journey with the prior two companies, and what I saw firsthand at Twitter was what struck me was this dichotomy in data between product engineering and business and finance. And on the product engineering side, you have Google Analytics, you have A/B testing tools, you have Grafana, you have all of these live dashboards that basically tell you exactly who's using your product, what they're doing, what your servers are doing. You can do any analysis you want, right? And those are basically free to run and real time. And then on the finance side, I, as the startup founder, was waiting 2 to 3 weeks for our accounting firm to send me a black and white P&L, balance sheet, cash flows, and whether it's in Excel or as a PDF. And I was just like, why am I paying so much for this? And why can't I really visualize the data? And so that was the founding premise. I had originally thought this was only a small business problem, but at Twitter, I literally went to corporate finance and I was like, what is our Q1 budget? I want to run a team event. And their response was, oh, we haven't run those books. Can you give us 3 weeks? And I was like, you have 100 people in finance. Like, what are you doing? And so that started me falling down the accounting rabbit hole. And basically started Digits with the premise of, can we make it real time? Can we make it visual? Can we make it sort of arbitrarily explorable? And that made me realize you actually just have to start from the ground up and build a whole new ledger.
Yeah, our introduction to Digits, when was this, Tom? It was like Nashville. It was probably right whenever you all started.
Yeah, I think 2022 for DCPA, right?
Yes. That was the first conference we showed up to.
Okay.
Was 1 o'clock. Okay. So, and I still have a picture, I think on my phone, Tom. We had those, you guys went to the speakeasy. You guys had this like real hipster vibe going. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
You had like the smoked and ice cubes. If you've ever seen that, we were like, oh yeah. And we were actually there. Well, one of your sales guys, he was super cool. And then one of your founding shareholders was there. And I just, over and over, I kept asking, I'm like, what the hell do you guys do? And they're like, well, that was it.
Right.
We're
Yeah.
sure at the time. They're like, we're doing AI. We're trying to like figure out how to do this or that. And then we were kind of talking about like there was the transaction side of it, there was the analytics side of it. There was like 3 or 4 different things. But at that point, I think it sounds like you guys were just kind of an idea at that point, trying to just figure out where the market was and where people were. And obviously that's changed dramatically over the last 4 or 5 years. Like you said, like the whole, you know, AI thing and the buzzwords around that, you know, we're always talking about, is it automation? Is it AI? You know, and then, you know, obviously on the machine learning side, like, is it just chat? You know, because that's probably one of my biggest frustrations right now in the space that I haven't been able to solve for. And I think is huge in the accounting space is right now there's a lot of stuff that kind of sits on top of the work or, you know, on top of the numbers. But it's like, you know, Jeff, if you're looking at your company and you want to know what you did, you know, this year versus last year, you don't really need like AI to call out you had a $10,000 variance. It's like, cool, I actually saw that on the same piece of paper they just read it from. You know what I'm saying? Like I need to know like, why did I have a $10,000 variance? Like, I think that's where, so I'm kind of curious in your journey through the AI and everything. And I've heard a lot of great things about digits over the years. I was going to jump on your guys' counsel because I was just very opinionated about
appreciate it.
Exactly how, like what we need is an accounting space. And I still am. I think that I think I was also foggy at that time on what I thought we needed. But I'm just curious, like where you all are at now, kind of in that journey, knowing that like, just the way we're even talking to things like chat, you know, being able to just kind of ask it questions and getting responses. That's ultimately what we really need to be able to do from financial side. You know, not that I'm off $10,000, but why am I off $10,000?
Why? Right. Yeah. Exactly. So yes, it was definitely a long journey for us, and we stayed in stealth mode really until a few months ago. So we just officially launched in March. And what we had been talking about back at DCPA years ago and so on was we were doing some reporting tools, we were doing some transaction review and sort of accountant client workflow tools. And we had built those in order to get the market feedback and really understand that we were sort of building the features that mattered, but we never admitted that they were all part of the actual ledger. And we kept that quiet because it just takes so long to build. If you look at the history of the accounting software space, it took NetSuite 5+ years to get to where they had something really usable. And that's the case today. So we really spent 5 years or so building out the Digits product. And if you don't do that, if you launch something that's sort of half-baked, nobody's really going to use it. Nobody's going to switch off QuickBooks or Xero or whatever they might have for sort of a half-baked accounting platform. And so that's why it didn't really help us to be too public with it. So we've really tried to re-architect it from the ground up for machine learning, for AI. And your comment about chatbots resonates directly. What has really struck me is that most products, whether in accounting or not, are sort of bolting on AI to their existing product. And they're doing it in a way of like, oh, we've added a chatbot for this, and we've added a little insight with some sparkles for this. And I'm like, that's not the power of this technology. Like, I don't need something else to talk to. I already have too many people to manage. I don't need to manage this chatbot. I want it to actually do the work. And so the way we think about it with Digits is the core sort of bookkeeping workflows, the super tedious parts that no one loves spending time on. That's what these models can get really good at. And so when you plug in your banks and cards and payroll and so on to Digits, there's no rules engine. You're not sitting there manually creating and managing rules. The AI learns instantly about your business. And now we actually put out a white paper in March. We auto book 93% of transactions correctly. So our goal is to basically automate 90+% of the bookkeeping tedium so that you and your teams can focus on the advisory work, on reviewing everything, on developing the storylines for the clients and like building that relationship. And so we can provide all the just underlying math that there's no value in you sitting there and doing.
Interesting. So the 93% are your sources primarily things like bill.com feeding information, bank feeds, credit card feeds. You're saying we can take those feeds and then apply the coding.
Exactly right. So it's banks, cards, payroll, bills, invoices, your Stripe data, anything that's sort of feeding into your business, we bring all together and book into the ledger.
Okay. Since we're talking to accounting, I've got a follow-up around that. So then what about as we think of like accrual-based accounting where things might be in a prepaid ledger, accruals, things like that? What kind of things are you doing around that?
Yes, really great question. So basically, we book it in a cash basis / modified cash basis based on the info available, right? But if there is an invoice or contract, we can understand that and we can book the accruals correctly. So when I talk about the overall data, the 93% we book today is generally the more cash-based transactions. The more complex accruals, we just don't have enough info to do correctly today. As the models get smarter and the integrations get more sophisticated, I see a path to like start breaking that down. But as you know, accounting is extremely complex. There's going to be areas that still require the human, but we try to eliminate the base tedium that's just so repetitive.
Integrating with, he mentioned some common stuff there. I mean, what are the integrations looking like, and what is that? What's kind of the future there with those integrations?
Yeah, so right now we already have all the core integrations for sort of a modern, digitally focused business. So Bill.com, Gusto Payroll, Stripe, Mercury, 10,000 other banks and cards, all the top providers. And so as we're looking forward, we're now really exploring what inventory integrations do we need to add, what more sophisticated point of sale integrations do we need to add. And so we're literally just constantly building and shipping integrations. So that is the full sort of power of the platform. Is just like as we add each individual thing, we'll support more and more types of businesses.
Okay.
So what I'm hearing is you're managing the bank feeds, you're doing those kind of things, the reconciliations, I assume as well, right? For all of those transactions and everything. And and I've seen some really good things over, even other, mind you, like rules based. I've seen some really good things come through in that space, basically like the really low end. I would say what most firms have already offshored for the most part, that function. And then some of these solutions, they're quasi expensive. So, even whenever you're like trying to math like offshore versus like buying this software, those seem to be kind of still kind of level set. What about like moving then toward, so there's two other pieces of that. There is what Tom was talking about, which to me is like the month-end close process, like closing the books. That's probably the hardest thing to do. That blocking and tackling, you can give it to an offshore team member. They're hitting that stuff at 90+%. You wake up in the morning and it's all done. Or some automations do it pretty well, that kind of a thing. But whenever it comes to actually being able to do the month-end close, is that kind of the next step, or are you guys skipping right to business insights? Where are you going with that stuff?
So it's a great question. There's pieces of it. So all the sort of initial categorization is done, as if you had an outsourced team. Anything that AI can't know or thinks it's low confidence on, we immediately throw out, because the worst thing is you don't want a mistake in the books. And instead we surface that in an inbox experience. So then you can just quickly go through and review and confirm them. The big advantage with our technical architecture is our models learn instantly from your changes or from your work. And so if you edit a transaction and confirm it, it'll immediately start mimicking you on the next similar transaction that comes in. And so it's super powerful in really quickly learning the books of the business. And we now have a bunch of examples of small business clients where actually the Digits AI booked it 100% correctly for the next month after the accountant had done the work on the first month cleaning it up. So that's really powerful. In terms of the month-end close, then of course we have reconciliations built in. You can do that in the product. Then you go through and review. We basically prepare draft financial reports for the review step so you can see what's missing. Are there any schedules or accruals you need to add manually or whatever it might be? And then we have reporting in the product. So you can fully customize your reports. You can send them out and share them securely with the client through the product. They can go in and comment on the report and ask questions right there. We also have a full vault functionality. So secure file sharing back and forth if you need to request additional details like contracts or other invoices or whatever it might be. And we also have full bill pay and invoicing in the product. So you can go and manage their ARAP and everything syncs straight through to the ledger.
So again, like thinking through it, like just in stages of work, from highest to lowest level, you have, you probably have like an offshore team or your bookkeepers or, first year accountant interns doing the blocking, tackling. Sounds like you got that piece dialed in. Then whenever you move upstream and you get to the month end close, you usually need like a senior accountant or kind of like a controller level manager type person overseeing that process, because everything on the balance sheet needs to be validated, right? You want to know why it took 2 weeks to get your financial statements? It's because nobody turns in their expense reports, rev rec needs to be done, schedules need to be done. You know what I mean? Like somebody has to like service all that stuff. And so the hope or the dream is, and you were talking about it with the reporting, it's like if you could dial in what all those schedules and reports look like and bring all that information in, now all of a sudden a manager or a senior accountant could come in and just instantly validate, and then go ahead and make some adjustments and move on. And then again, the other part is like analytically looking at the information. I can see that I have $10,000 discrepancy, or my sales went up by $44,000. What I've struggled with, unless I'm going and finding all these different data sources, like having almost like this data lake of information, being able I want to be able to talk to the data like I would a senior accountant. So if Tom's my CFO and I'm a senior accountant, he's like, Adam, why did it go up by $10,000? Well, I got to go in, I got to go look. And then if I've done all that homework, I'm like, well, Tom, it's because we don't do this anymore. We did this and we have this and we have that. And then I can show them all my screenshots, or, I can pull stuff up and show them everything that I did. You can skip that whole step and that whole process and that whole part of add-on if Tom could just do that without me there. Right? It'll save a tremendous amount of time, a tremendous amount of cost, a tremendous amount of leverage. Are you at the point where that underlying data exists and you can queue up the data right there?
So we made a major architectural decision, which this might get a little techie for folks, but if you look at QuickBooks or Xero or Oracle or NetSuite, all of them, they are relational databases. And that's how ledgers have been built for 30 years now, maybe 30 plus. And the challenge with that is they treat the individual transaction rows as sort of opaque. And so if let's say you have an Uber transaction, QuickBooks just sees UBER, right? It doesn't know what Uber is. And in fact, there's a big limitation where in QuickBooks, you can't have a vendor and a customer with the same name, which is why people use all these tricks and like append a V letter and so on to differentiate them. The result of that is you've basically destroyed your data model. And if your data is not clean, then the insights aren't going to be clean and you sort of lose. That's why you need all the manual work to do it. So when we built Digits, we decided day one, it was going to be an object-oriented data model. We use what's called a vector graph architecture, where everything is an object: your transactions, your vendors, your customers, your chart of accounts, your departments, locations, et cetera, et cetera. We map the relationships between them. And that's what allows the models to have a really strong semantic understanding of each business. And that's how they get so good at booking the transactions. But the benefit on the review side is we can attribute any delta all the way down to the object level. And so let's say marketing jumped 10%, right? In Digits, you don't see marketing jump 10%. I mean, it does tell you that, but that immediately tells you because of X dollar amount increase with this graphic designer or whatever it was. So we do vendor and customer level attribution of everything. And so when you look at things like Stripe, nobody today connects their Stripe directly to QuickBooks because it can't handle that volume of data, right? It falls where instead you do daily or weekly or monthly journal entries to sort of make everything net out. But now you've just lost all the power of the ledger. And so we designed basically a high volume data architecture as well. We feed in every single Stripe purchase, every item, every customer record, et cetera. So all that info is in Digits. And when you're like, why is revenue down? We'll tell you, oh, it was down because of a drop with these customers. And that gives you a lot more powerful insight just instantly. You don't have to go and export data and pivot it and run your own report and so on.
Interesting.
I can just ask it that question and just type that in there.
You can type it in, or you can just click through to that, let's say your revenue category, and it'll immediately give you the analysis. So we just surface analysis on every page of the product.
Interesting. As you mentioned the product, I want to make sure that our listeners and me are really clear. a lot of my clients are QuickBooks, as Adam mentioned, but then also zero users. So if I'm like, Digit sounds awesome, want to go there, what does the product itself look like? And is that a conversion over, or help me understand that?
Yeah. So you go to digits.com, you click sign up. It's available today. You can go use it. If you have QuickBooks already, you connect your QuickBooks and it'll sync all your data. And so you can start right where you left off in QuickBooks. If you want to start fresh, you start fresh. We gift you a chart of accounts. You connect your banks and cards and payroll and so on, and everything starts auto booking. And of course, you can fully manage the chart of accounts and everything in Digits, so you can customize it however you want. But yes, super easy to try out and get started. And we have a free trial. So literally would love folks to check it out and give me feedback. Would love to know what you like or don't like.
And we've talked a lot at the transaction level. Do you want to brag about the dashboarding and reporting level? Because as you know, many people they have a tool, but no one's really good at forecasting and reporting. And then the detail just is never in that. So we'd love to hear.
Yeah. So this is probably what we're most known for. We have thousands of accounting firms who have used our reporting software. And unlike sort of a typical just black and white table of numbers, we went and built Google Docs, but for finance. And so it is all live in browser, customizable. You can upload cover photos. You can comment at the row level detail right in the report. You can drag and drop custom charts and graphs and visualize your cash flow. Basically imagine sort of what you see is what you get report creator in your browser. It's all live off the ledger. So anything you see in the report, you can just click straight through into the ledger and see all the underlying data. And when you edit a transaction, everything updates instantly. So it's this incredible way to sort of visualize and understand your finances.
And even though you had said a DCPA, or maybe Adam is one who said, we don't really know what we're building, your salesperson did give a couple of demos. And I will say the two things that really intrigued me were the transaction level detail that was in there. So going from this looks weird and then going down saying, I can see 12 transactions.
Yep.
And the ability, if I'm, I guess maybe anyone, but if I'm the CFO reviewing the notes, I can add a comment to something. So on a chart, you can say, this variance is because we overspend in marketing or whatever it is. And that way someone looking at the dashboard can get some of my insight right there versus waiting for me to tell them or forgetting or things. But those were two pretty cool things. Because as you can imagine, we do a lot of stuff with dashboarding, but it's very common. I'm preparing for a meeting to then log into the accounting system and go look at the detail so that I can then explain it was these three vendors when you look at that jump.
Right.
And there's a very natural sort of hesitation. Okay, I've now logged into 4 different things to get this answer, where if it was present in one would be really valuable.
I really appreciate that. Yeah, we spent over 2 years building the reporting functionality because it is so important. Like that's the primary output to all the accounting work. People want to understand how the business is doing and they want to do so intuitively instead of having to just continually export data to Excel and try to run your own pivots and formulas and so on. So we tried to build as much of that into the product as possible.
Yeah, I do remember. The reporting was fantastic. And at that point, that's what we were trying to figure out. Like, is it going to be its own thing or is it attaching to other stuff? You know what I mean? Like, that's what was confusing early on was like, okay, this is a reporting tool, and it did have some really good insights. And I think we've seen with a lot of products, starting from scratch where you are, and then these other ones are like now trying to find this cool technology bolted on. It does seem kind of like backwards, right? Like it's really surface level. They've got the AI tool. It's got the little like sparkle thing at the top, but it's like the business insights just aren't super helpful. At least, it's been pretty disappointing in the space for the most part. So I definitely would encourage anybody to check out Digits. And if you made it that easy to be able to do, that's what I wasn't familiar with that. So you made the conversion from a QBO file. Pretty simple. In
it
that
takes
regard.
literally 2 minutes. Yeah. It's extremely fast.
So would you say that's more built for people that are on QBO, or what about people that are, because there's been I would say there's been a little bit of a migration for, even like really small businesses have been trying to move upstream to like NetSuite and Intact and stuff like that, which I think it's coming out with some kind of enterprise QBO version or whatever. Like where do people start and stop? I mean, obviously it sounds like from go, they can be with you, but is there a stopping point? Is there a point where it's like, no, you kind of have to go more in one of these like light ERPs, or are you able to manage that?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So the big limitations today in Digits are we don't do multi-entity consolidation. and we don't do multi-currency or like foreign currency transactions. And so if you're running a single entity US business, we can handle pretty much any scale. Those aspects are on our roadmap, but honestly, probably about a year or so out, because just the existing space is huge. And so today, people would move off Digits to NetSuite, just like you might move off QuickBooks to NetSuite. Down the road, we intend to keep building out the features to keep them on Digits as long as possible. And so the architecture supports it. We just haven't prioritized those yet.
Which makes sense. I mean, that one's, what about the other thing is forecasting? Like, so for us as BCFOs, forecasting is huge. Are you doing more predictive analytics, or are you doing more, can you also do like logic-based forecasting?
That is a great question. So we acquired Basis, the FP&A startup, about a year ago. And so their team had built out a full forecasting engine. We are basically working that into our roadmap. And so that will come, but again, it'll probably take another year to build correctly. So we don't do forecasting in the product today. We do very in-depth historical analytics.
Okay. I mean, and I love predictive analytics. Don't get me wrong. Like, I think they're great. But for us, whenever we're doing storytelling and we're working with small businesses, we're not dealing with like, billions amounts of data. We're not working for PepsiCo. You know what I mean? Where predictive analytics make 100% sense. We're dealing with hundreds or thousands of transactions a month. Those require a little bit more thought. Like, why are we hitting these numbers? What are we going to do? Building out those KPIs and those metrics. Those require like more logic-based forecasting, in my perspective. So you are kind of starting to work through that as well.
Yeah, and we have KPI support. And so like if you connect Gusto, we'll automatically pull in your headcount and track that month by month for you. And so those are sort of the building blocks that we'll need to build out the forecasting. We just haven't invested in the full forecasting engine yet.
Yeah, that'll be really important, because the payroll is one of those, especially for a lot of the service-based businesses. Well, one, there's a way to get a ton of metrics out of that, obviously, right, with timesheets and the actual payroll. But then also, and one of the more frustrating things, and Tom, this is like, you build out this like really dynamic, awesome forecast, and then you're like, damn it, why am I off? But the information's inside of Gusto. You know what I mean? Right. And just the time it takes to like go through and like look through head count, it's just not, the juice isn't worth the squeeze for the most part. If you're off 10 grand, it's like, I don't know, maybe we didn't pay Jeff this month. I don't know. You know what I mean? Somebody got overtime. You know what I mean? Close enough. So it would be great if those two things could kind of talk. And then how does that work? Are you bringing all the data into an Digit space as opposed to it like, or is it just live connecting to all these different tools and then bringing it in as you need it to, kind of a thing? I don't know how it works.
Yeah, great question. No, we are the full stack ledger. And so everything is imported from these connections and then remodeled within our system in Digits. And so Digits becomes your system of record. We're continually syncing with Gusto, syncing with your bank, et cetera, et cetera.
And bringing it in. So it's not just like, it's not just going and finding it whenever it needs to, kind of a thing. It's actually bringing and updating the data live. Okay.
Right. One of our sort of key aspects of pride is Digits is extremely fast. Every single page loads in under 100 milliseconds. And this has been an intentional sort of design requirement, technical requirement, and so on. Because you're probably familiar, some other ledgers can feel a little sluggish as you're navigating stuff. And the way that happens is all the data is in Digits, modeled in Digits to optimize for that performance.
Okay. So until the Basis forecast is up, if I have my forecast built elsewhere and want to use Digits dashboard, is there a way to say, sure, you can compare to your forecast and we'll pull that in somehow in today's environment?
It's a great feature request. We don't pull it in today. You could definitely attach it to one of your reports. And so you can still share it with your client through the product, but we don't do the comparison analysis in the product today.
Okay. But coming, that would be, as I mentioned before, and this is still my belief that most of the products, you've got great reporting tools that are not so great at forecasting, but they're saying they want to get there. You got some really good forecasting tools who say, we have dashboards, and you're looking, yeah, but they're not that good at dashboards. So we end up in multiple products. And if you're able to add that, I think you really could say, hey, within one, now I've got the data and at the forecast, you could have detail that I assume you could even say, well, now I can tell you by vendor why you're off if you chose to plan at that level. And I can compare those, which would be really rich data to have.
That is the superpower, and particularly for our sort of tech-focused businesses that use digits, being able to project their Amazon spend or their Google Cloud spend at the vendor level is super material to their forecasts. And so that would be a huge power here.
Okay. This sounds great. So I know you have a partner program with accountants.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that. As you have accountants listening who I'm hoping are saying this product sounds good, and then you've also got a program. So what can that offer to accountants?
So we launched the wait list back in March, and we sort of teased a bunch of this last year at Scaling New Heights. And so we now have 600 plus accounting firms on our wait list.
Okay.
We are currently actively calling them and getting them off the wait list. So expect a lot of movement in that in the next few weeks. And we will be back at Scaling New Heights this year for those who are attending. And we'll have a bunch more detail on how that works and how they can get in. But yeah, we are basically sprinting to unlock the accounting firm access.
Okay, that's great.
Are you going to have like an admin dashboard where is it going to be really easy to get in and out of all my, if I have 50 accounts on there, am I going to be able to do that? Am I going to be, I have now I know you don't have consolidation features now, but in like the future, obviously you don't want to get client data mixed around, but can you pull out analytics for your own practice management? Like my clients are able to hit their cash reserves, my clients can't, those kind of things. Will you be able to pull in those kind of things?
Yeah, this is exactly the plan. So today, if you go to digits.com and sign up, you can only sign up as an individual business, like one client, basically. Very shortly, I don't want to prefetch our launch, but very shortly, you'll be able to sign up as an accounting firm, and then you get your firm management dashboard. You can add your clients, you can jump between them. The initial version won't have all the comparative metrics, but that's been a heavy feature request. And so we are basically prioritizing what metrics do we expose on the dashboard? How can you filter and group your clients and so on? One thing we do already have is all the permissioning is in place. So you can invite your colleagues in your firm and assign who has access to which clients, and they won't see the others and so on.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
that's
really in order. That's great. And then I assume like all the white labeling, like on the reporting and stuff like that, are you able to do all that stuff as well?
So yeah, you can upload your firm logo, and the reports are branded with your firm and your name and so on. We don't support like completely eliminating the digits branding, like it's hosted at digits.com and so on, but the reports will look like they're issued by your firm.
Okay. You can mess with the colors so they match your brand and all that.
Yeah, and totally custom cover photos, which we have folks like customizing per client, which gets fun. And like, oh, this type of business, I use this report cover photo, and this time of year, I use a holiday one or whatever. It allows you a lot of creativity.
Yeah, that's neat.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's really nice. Well, as we're coming to a close, Adam, you probably remember this when we had mentioned the speakeasy event at the DCPA. And Jeff, we got to know your team pretty well there. It was a fairly small event. But one thing I remember is the answer that Adam and I gave to many things like, well, how have you figured out like the forecast linked to this or that, was we would talk about our technology director, who we still have, who happens to be a CPA and is just great. And after like the third or fourth time we gave that answer, they quickly became apparent. They're like, I think we want to talk to him and like ignore you guys, just go have fun. But we get him like as an employee, as an advisory board, something like that. So then we're quickly trying to protect our team from that.
Right.
But it was a fun conversation. We could both brag about what we had in place, and your team recognizing the value of someone who can see technology and accounting and how all that fits together. And sounds like you've done it really well on your own.
Well, no, I appreciate it. We've also been very lucky to have some incredible support. So one of our lead product managers is a CPA, was an accountant in a previous life, and is now leading the product design for the core ledger. We also just 2 months ago announced that Craig Walker, who's the co-founder and longtime CTO of Xero, has joined Digits full-time this past winter as head of product strategy. And so he knows the space extremely thoroughly and has just already been a massive value add. So yeah, we're really trying to build the team we need to be the sort of future de facto accounting platform for SMB.
That is great. Any final thought that you would give? I guess it's an opportunity if we've missed something in here, but as you got accountants who are moving, we hope our group is very much advisory focused, helping bring new things to their clients. What's sort of a final pitch that you would give them?
Yeah, I guess what I would recap is I think the whole space is focused on the advisory movement, which is fantastic. The benefit to Digits, and what we would really love to work with everyone on, is sort of replacing the need for your outsourced junior bookkeeping role almost. because the AI technology is now at a point where it can do that work very reliably. And so as you think about how you scale your firm and how you manage that work, what AI now allows is for that to be done 24/7 in real time with no management overhead or sort of HR issues or anything like that. And it really allows you to free up your focus on advising your clients and the more value add, higher margin work that I think is really critical to sort of scaling and growing strong firms going forward. And so we are here. We are super excited to partner. I would love any feedback, any feature requests. And so check it out at digits.com and let me know what you think.
That's great. The part of that, Jeff, that really speaks to me is that automation that can get the underlying data accurate really helps you with dashboards. And as we onboard new clients, it's very common that they want a pretty looking dashboard. And we're spending time like with their time entry data and saying, hey, unless this is actually clean data, then these dashboards are going to be meaningless. So let's spend some time there. And we also clean up their general ledger and clean up their accounting. And so it sounds like you guys are focusing in the right area of, these nice looking pictures that tell you things don't tell a very good story when the underlying data is incorrect. That's not helpful.
That's actually where we started, because we built the dashboard screen first and then tried it with a whole bunch of businesses. And we were like, oh, that's terrible. And,
Sure.
And we quickly had to fall down the rabbit hole and fix the data.
That's really smart. I can understand it. That's great. Well, Jeff, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for spending time, and this has really been enjoyable.
Really appreciate it. Yeah. Tom, Adam, thank you so much.
Yep. Have a great day.